a fabulous, fabulous time. So hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Gardner, host of HTL, and welcome to our #1 hospitality show. And if you are first-time viewers, get ready for an amazing conversation with today's guest from New York, Jaclyn Zendrian. And she not only is a great guest that we're going to talk about about associations, but she's also the president of events and live events in the New York metro area. But she is the president of events for CurePSP, and we're going to get to know a little bit more about that as well. Plus, she is going to share her in-depth opinions and unique perspective on the association market, why she believes nonprofits are more than just galas, and so much more. So right now, today, let's bring in Jaclyn to say hello to her. Hello there, Jaclyn.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today.
Oh, good. I'm glad. So how are you doing during all this craziness?
You know, I'm holding up. I have to say, I'm very, very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in. I think since the pandemic has begun, my workload has actually tripled because we have had to take our in-person events, we've had to undo them, we've had to redo them, and then we've actually added to our calendar of events at the nonprofit I work for, CurePSP. So I'm a lucky lady in that regard.
Wow, you really are. I know I'm glad you brought this up because we definitely want to learn more about CurePSP. The beauty of the show is that not only do I get to know about my guests and knowing who you are and what you're all about, but also to learn about the amazing companies and organizations like CurePSP. So I know it's been around about 30 years. What with the vital information and resources that CurePSP brings to the table, including about the coronavirus. But I've also learned that and understand that it has a lot to do with the brain and how it can affect the prime of your life, so especially at my age. Can you tell us more about this and the CurePSP program?
Yeah, so CurePSP is a nonprofit dedicated to care, consciousness, and cure of prime of life neurodegenerative diseases. And PSP, which stands for Progressive Supranuclear Palsy, is quite the mouthful. It is not for PlayStation and is classified actually as atypical Parkinson's disease. So it is, although not Parkinson's disease, it is related to Parkinson's disease and is actually also related to ALS, dementia, and several other types of brain diseases that people are very familiar with. And we work on the premise that it's worthwhile taking a look at the disease area that we're in because it's the easiest one to research. And the working theory is that if you wind up solving or finding a cure for PSP, it'll tip the dominoes for research in other areas for like multiple system atrophy, ALS, which is also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, Parkinson's disease, CTE, and a variety of others. So we do a lot of different things. We have support groups across the US. We have, I'm in charge of all of our fundraisers. I take care of our research symposia that we hold every other year now. We have conferences, we have patient conferences, research conferences for neurologists, for allied healthcare professionals, which means physical therapists, occupational therapists, speech language pathologists. So we really just try to make everybody aware of what this disease is because the more understanding there is of this very rare terminal disease, the more people can get a proper earlier diagnosis and the more access to information that they'll have for a better quality of life while they have a few years left.
Sure, absolutely. How huge is this? And I love the tagline, unlocking the secrets of brain disease.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying is if you unlock the cure to this disease, then you will most likely unlock the cures for all of these other diseases. And so we're really hoping to make an impact in all these other different areas of the brain because it's all related to the same protein in the brain that goes awry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Very interesting. I'm glad you shared that with us because, again, I never even heard of CurePSP. So I was fascinated to read up about that.
So a fun fact is that most people don't know that Dudley Moore actually passed away from PSP. Oh. So a lot of people think he passed away from alcoholism. And one of the traits of PSP is that people are very prone to falling over and having slurred speech, which, as we know, when you're intoxicated, these are traits of that as well. But no, he actually passed from progressive supranuclear palsy and not alcoholism.
Wow, unbelievable. Well, and for our viewers out there that actually, work in the association market, during all of this noise that we're all dealing with and all that kind of stuff, you can't help but wonder if all of your hard work is being utilized or even noticed, especially by the members within the association. And more bluntly, in the face of a continuing global economic and health crisis, does anyone even really care about their membership right now?
I think they do. There's so much value in event professional associations right now because we are putting on so many educational events, not only in the local and regional markets, but also nationally through the power of the internet. We're always looking for additional help, even from non-members. We're really looking for any volunteers that just want to connect and network and build their roster for future connections, even if they're either unemployed or underemployed right now. This is such a great way for people to really connect with others and build those skill set and their abilities because we have so many projects that are going on within the events associations right now. We have not only webinars that can be put on, but we also need help with their marketing communications. We need help reaching other kinds of members in different remote areas. I mean, although I'm the president of the New York Metro chapter, the city and state of New York is massive. I wish I could reach all of the potential members that we have just in this area, but it's pretty impossible. And we would love to have help and from volunteers and from other association members that can, put us together with people who have really good insights and advice and connections and abilities to help us do more of what we're really great at.
Wow, that's amazing because, and to back up what you just said, of how true that really is, because again, you would think everything has been shutting down, everything's been, really difficult to work through, but yet associations are doing well. There was a study with North Star of about 1,000 members of associations, and nearly 400 of those professionals who work at those organizations said 50% said no, associations are not as important to members as they were pre-pandemic. Instead, they are more important, which I thought was really interesting. So really, the members are hungry. They're really hungry for help that will lead to increased revenue for their businesses, new jobs, opportunities for themselves. It's just amazing that one area that we know of the hospitality industry is doing really well is our associations.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that because there is so much value there. People are really, really wanting to build their skill set. They really, really want to know more, webinars. They want to know what the future holds going forward. They want to know what is the market going to turn out to be like. They want to know, if I can't go back to the job that I was once doing, what are my other options? They have some people who are unemployed or underemployed. They want to know with this free time, what can they be helping out with? And it's such a great opportunity to take this time and work with event associations and to watch their webinars or to speak on these webinars because they also have insights and advice that they can offer.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that, because I know one of the um, challenges of associations is getting new members, and for them to hear this should be a plus for associations. I mean, the normal way of networking for business growth and career advancement right now is put on hold differently. It's changed forever, but yet with associations doing so well as they are, don't you see membership increasing then?
It's been a slow and steady increase. I mean, I can speak only for really the New York chapter. So in a good year, like last year was an amazing year for us. We had about 140 members. And because of pandemic, we have dipped down since then, but it has been steadily, slowly increasing. But we've also had people who said, like, look, I can't do a membership right now, but I think next year when the market hopefully picks back up, I want to be able to join again, but what can I do now? How can I help you out now? And that's fantastic. And just to speak on the ability to start building your network now, even if you're not a member, is that when I first moved to New York 4.5 years ago, I wasn't a member of any event association. And so I kind of started making the rounds to see which one that might be the best fit for me. And so I started going to different events, and I found ILEA, the International Live Events Association, New York Metro chapter. And I joined them because they really wanted me to help. They were really my people. They were really the ones I fit in best with. And they have been so incredibly supportive. And here I am, 3 years later, I'm now the president of their chapter, and I can't speak highly enough of them, because I went to a couple of events. I joined about 6 months later, and pretty much the entire, most of the entire chapter are either colleagues or coworkers or vendors or some of my best friends. And I can say for sure that if people don't join an association, they'll certainly get something out of it, whether it's education or a new network or a new vendor or and even, God willing, even a new job, who knows? I still think there's very much a place for event associations in this economic pandemic now, but I certainly would see going forward as well.
Well, and it's interesting because although it looks different right now, I'm sure you have some take on the virtual aspects of it. While we're waiting for some questions or comments to come in on the chat here, how is virtual member engagement creating a new path for association growth?
Yeah, so virtual has really been able to give us a better insight to the national networks. We're able to better partner up with other chapters in other cities. So just recently, we were able to work with a sister chapter, San Diego, and we've been able to meet contacts and colleagues out there and get a better sense of who they are that we probably wouldn't have been able to do in past years, outside of perhaps going to ILEA Live on site at a conference and either meeting with them at a bar or at a networking function. So I would say this has definitely given us greater exposure nationally because of the internet. People are signing up on our Facebook chapter page. They're signing up through our webinars, through our survey, or not our survey, our MailChimp account, just to be aware of what we're doing. So even if they can't join this thing, we have people from San Francisco that are coming to speak, at different things. We have people who are from different markets that are giving us advice. I can call up different chapter presidents and, ask them to come in. So it's really amazing that now they don't have to fly in for all of these things. They can just log on and give us really wonderful advice and really great educational pieces for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm glad to hear that. That's really great news. And yet associations sometimes, especially nonprofits, have always been known as the gala queen or king, type of, you're always going to an association because of the gala. What other events have you seen nonprofits doing successfully above and beyond galas? And how do we get rid of that perception?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's a lot of it has to do with the types of nonprofits that we're looking at. I work mostly in the medical space. So a lot of my sister organizations that are in this area tend to be like the Alzheimer's Association. And they're also doing things online like we are with their annual medical conferences. And we forget that oftentimes that symposia and medical conferences that educate medical doctors as well as allied healthcare professionals are often put on by nonprofits. And just because we forget because they're not a 501c3, they might be a 501c6, they are still nonprofits and they still offer a lot of value for what they do. And so when people think of nonprofits, they immediately think, oh, fundraiser, it's a gala, and that's not necessarily always the case. So I think what people often should see when there is a symposium, like I put on a symposium every year, which was originally going to be in London, and then it was going to be in New York, and now it's going to be virtual this year in February, still based out of New York in a virtual studio, partly live, partly recorded, and it's really just a mindset that has to change, but also it's not always educational conferences. It's also a lot of experiential events that people are doing right now. So there's a lot of people who are doing online cooking classes or things like that, or having shared experiences with their family members, virtual birthday parties, and donating those birthday parties, donating those anniversaries, and having a shared collective experience online, and donating the proceeds of what they probably would have spent on a birthday present to a designated nonprofit. And I think when people really have to get out of that mindset, it's always a gala, it's not always a gala. You really have to be, it's really more than that. It's about education, it's about meetings, it's about, shared experiences online, it's about the virtual in general now.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying here, and it's been the whole gala part of associations has always been such a perception for way too long, and I think with the changes that are going on right now, this is an opportunity, I believe, that leaders can start looking at different things within association. Don't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's really important for the heads of departments, for presidents of organizations to really speak up and make it very clear that these types of events are existing. They're out there. They need to be a little bit more vocal, because not every social event needs to be a gala format. I happen to be putting on a 30th anniversary celebration next month on December 7th. People keep calling it a gala, and not once have I ever called it a gala. It is a celebration. It is a reminder of what our mission is and how we've managed to exist for 30 years, and awarding people for all of their hard work and a recognition of our volunteers. But it's not a gala format, because to me, a gala format has a lot of fundraising elements to it. It has a paddle raise, it has auctioneers, it has probably a lot of music and dancing to it, and we don't have those elements. So I think a lot of it has to do with definitions, and leadership really needs to be better about defining those things and correcting people about what it should and shouldn't be.
Yeah, so let's spend a moment here on leaders in associations, because those are great points. And again, it's a great opportunity now for not only changes within the association, but the higher up management level. So let's talk about them. What are some of the ways that they can up their role, up their game in their role to help associations at this time? I mean, with the association being hot as it is, like you're saying, they can't let go. They can't let go of that momentum, and really need to start looking at the association process and the members differently than ever before. So what are some of the things that you would recommend for leaders to take an advantage of right now?
I think it's reimagining what was and going forward from there. I think a lot of times people are very hesitant to look into their own personal contacts. I think they've relied in the past quite a bit on their outside influences, people that they've always relied on before. They've always relied on their own colleagues from the event association world. I think it's okay to look within your own personal network. Who have I always used as my own personal vendors for the things that I'm doing? How can I have a conversation with them that I might not have had before because I didn't feel it was necessary to have that conversation with them before because I was always comfortable with the way things were done before. I think it's about repositioning the way we were thinking and trying new things and, throwing some spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. I think leaders need to be willing to have those conversations, but also being able to have hard conversations and, talk to former members about, those who have left and why they left and why, they left under maybe uncomfortable circumstances. And, how can we grow from there? How can we do better from there? Even if those uncomfortable circumstances may not have had to do anything with that particular leader, but maybe it was the organizational structure. And how can that leader take that information and move it up the ladder? And how can we do better and be better from there? So
Wow.
I think those are some things.
Wow, those are excellent points. Okay, so let's go a little bit deeper. What are, let's say, 3 things that they really need to do, and above and beyond, because that makes a lot of sense at the member level, but what about within the association when they're working with people like you or other potential members that are coming in, or just working the job in a sense, every day being in the office, eventually when we get back to the office with leaders? How would you like to be treated? How should they be treating those that are helping putting on the events?
I think this is where having a nonprofit background is really beneficial for me. Working with event association members is it's really about the personal touches. It's really about staying in touch with those individuals. It's about checking in with people on a regular basis. And how can you be accessible to people? I, especially for my board, because we work so hard, I always try to be available and accessible and visible to them, but also to the membership. Every year we always have an annual letter that the president of our ILEA association for our chapter writes to our membership, and we always have our Big Apple celebration, and we explain to the chapter, this is what my vision and my mission for the year is, and I want to be here for you, and I want to have these personal conversations, and this is how you can find me. It's not that hard to find me. I'm on the website. I'm the only person in the world with my name. You can Google me. I'm on LinkedIn. If I'm not reaching out to you, you can absolutely reach out to me, and we'll talk, and we'll figure some stuff out if you're having some difficulties, or if you want to see something, or whatever it might be. But absolutely, I'm here for my members.
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy, because a lot of leaders have a tendency to want to hold back and let people come to them. But now I think the roles are switching. I think it's time for leaders to really up their game and be a lot more visible, accessible, like you said. That's very big. And so I know that you and I talked about this in previously about the possibility of maybe even making mistakes within the association, and you were talking about thinking failure is not a bad thing. So I think that's a really good topic for us to dive deep into, because right now there are no rules. Everything can be up on the table now. We can do whatever we want to do, and no one's going to slap you on the hand, because today it's all about creativity. It's all about trying new things. And so when we try new things, sometimes we stumble on ideas that did not work. But you're saying failure is not a bad thing when something like this comes up, right?
No, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think failure is absolutely something that is okay, and it's a healthy thing, in fact, because we can't live in a success-only environment, because if we live in a success-only environment, we're never going to be able to build the skill set of coping when things go poorly. And the fact of the matter is that none of us are perfect. We're all building this plane while flying it. And there are lessons that very much can be learned when you fall. And I like to think of these situations. The only time you ever really do fail is when you don't learn something and you just do it exactly the same way. And then you fail again. But I think the next time you tackle something, and if you do fail, at least you tried it differently. You've made that in itself a success, and you know how to do better the next time. Like, fail better next time, fail bigger next time, fail harder next time. It should be better, because that's how you build up your resiliency. That's how you have grit. That's how you go forward. And we have to stop being in this environment where it's like, no, it's always 100% perfect success. That's the way it is. That's not the way it is. Especially, I mean, we're all in the events industry. I have yet to ever produce or been to an event where everything was executed perfectly. There is no such thing as perfection, and we have to stop thinking that. There is no such thing as perfection. That's a myth that we tell ourselves, and we make ourselves feel bad, and we make ourselves sick over it. And it's very, very unhealthy. It's okay if something's wrong. It's okay if the coffee comes out 15 minutes late. At least it's still hot. And, and then for the next day, how to make the coffee come out on time, because who's going to be serving. Like there's always something to learn from the situation. So I think it's about what the lesson is that you're learning. That's how you become a better person going forward.
I totally agree with you. And just to add to that, I believe how you handle it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think this is where we can really tell the difference between a newly experienced association, planner as opposed to an experienced one. It's I believe, all about how you handle it and how you give that facade of everything's under control. This is, something that can easily happen, and it did. Now what do we do?
It's true. I love using the analogy of a duck on water. Like, if you're at a lake and you see a duck swimming along, from the surface, you just see this, chill little duck floating along, but underneath, the legs are paddling away. Like, that's how I like to be at an event, is like, you see this calm exterior, you just see me like, oh, hello, how are you? Oh, so good. Like, in my mind, I'm going a million miles a minute, because I know that if people see me panicking, one, it's very unprofessional. Two, people are going to pick up on it, and three, then they're going to panic as well, and it's going to cause this chain reaction, and then you're going to have chaos and pandemonium, and nobody wants that. So I think, if we can just, project, a certain exterior and still make things happen at the same time, that's very, very important.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's amazing to watch how, when things do go down, how people react. But I don't think I'll look at a duck the same again after hearing that, because I never thought about that before. So that was a great analogy. And that's kind of explains what we do in our business at the same time. We've got some comments and some questions here, which I'd like to bring on board here for you. As a matter of fact, this is a new viewer, and again, I'm terrible with names, so I'm not even going to try. But I'm so glad you're here. And says, "Well, hello, what's up?" I love that. And we've got Kathy Lee here. Great advice. She applying all the aspects of life. Thank you, Kathy.
Kathy once worked at the Gaylord down in Orlando. I know her.
Oh, excellent. And then Lisa Raymond, it's about transparency, authenticity. Oh yeah, humanity. It really is. And boy, does that really show.
People will know if you're not authentic. They can see it. They can feel it. Even through the internet, they will tell if you're not being authentic. They can see the cheese. They can see the fake. They know those veneers when they see them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Lisa does have a question for you. How can someone actually volunteer their time or donate to a nonprofit like CurePSP?
To donate, go to psp.org, and we have a little donate tab. But to volunteer, we've got a couple of different options. It just really depends on what aspects you want to do. I mean, we're always looking for support group leaders if you're a bit more empathetic of a person. If you're in the New York area, we might have some envelopes for you to stuff. But if you always want to donate an anniversary or a birthday, you can do that through Facebook. That's really, really easy to do. I always recommend people think about what kinds of hobbies that they personally like to do, rather than, I get a lot of times people who will email me and they'll be like, their mother or father, aunt, or whomever might have passed away some years ago, and they were like, oh, they really love to play golf. I want to put on a golf tournament. And I'm like, cool. Have you ever played golf? And they're like, nope. And I'm like, yeah, wow. Golf tournaments are really hard to put on, especially if you don't know how to play golf. What do you like to do? And they'll be like, I really like to bowl. And I'm like, you should do a bowling tournament. Right. I really tell people to go with what their hobbies are. Like, I have somebody every year that puts on a karaoke night, and it's a huge success. Yeah. Or, do like a virtual potluck or something like that. Right. I know it's really hard to gather right now. So I think probably the easiest thing you can do is just donate your birthday on Facebook.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great idea. And that's going on a lot too. So it shouldn't be that hard at all. Definitely. Well, clearly you've been at this a long time. And
it's been a few years.
So, yeah, definitely. And again, this is what I love about our industry. I mean, as long as I've been in the industry, you've been in the industry, we finally meet, and this is just so thrilling. So, what is one of the things our industry people can take away from your expertise and your experience, especially the planner side? What can they learn and why? What is it that really sticks out for you that makes a difference in your career?
I would say nothing is ever lineal. Nothing is ever going straight. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I didn't know until I was probably 27, until I had a vague idea what I wanted to be until I grew up. So I started out my career at Johns Hopkins University, and I was just randomly placed there by a temp agency to be a coordinator for their neurology fundraising division. And as fate would have it, it's kind of a funny story. My mother also applied for the same job, and they didn't. They decided not to go with her, and the temp agency sent over my resume. And my mother also was like, "Well, maybe you should look at my daughter for this position as well." And so they were like, "Well, we got your resume from two different sources, so clearly you were meant for this job." And really, that kind of just started me on this pathway. And so when I was at Hopkins, I really wasn't even involved in events. I was kind of like 1/3 office manager, 1/3, the director's assistant, and 1/3 catch-all. And we found out as time went by, I was really good at event planning because it took that off the plate of the development officer, so that they could focus on their individual portfolios for their donors. So if they didn't have to worry about the logistics and coordination of the events, they could just focus on their donor portfolios, and it worked out really nicely. and I really liked doing the events. So I had a really good rapport with my boss at the time. And she was like, look, if you're ever going to want to leave, that's fine. I get it. You're not going to want to be my coordinator for the rest of your life. So just give me a heads up and I'll give you like a good reference. And so I started looking around about 4 years later, and I wound up becoming a project manager in continuing medical education. And it was a good job for a while, but the way the market was trending was more online interactive events. And I just really preferred live events. I liked being on site. I liked running around, like picking out menus and staging and all of that stuff. And so I was like, well, I'm going to, start looking for a new job. And that's how I found the position I'm in, because I just saw one online. I found it online. I found it on monster.com of all places. I didn't have any connections.
Monster.com, are they still around?
I don't even think they're still around. And I was online and I was like, hey, it's brains. I know some of these physicians, and it's 15 minutes from my apartment, and it was great. And I'm here 5 years later, and I've been promoted 3 times. And just because one's career doesn't, go linearly doesn't mean that it's not right. It will absolutely lead to other things. And just because somebody's been laid off or you're not doing the exact thing that you want to do right now doesn't mean that you're not gaining a skill set, and it doesn't mean that you're not going to end up where you want to be eventually. You could be making connections in other ways you don't even realize that'll pay out in the end.
Well, so what do you think someone should do if they're interested in following your footsteps and coming to work for an association? What should they do?
I would say, I think volunteering is always a really, really good way to do something, because it's pretty low risk. I mean, you're going to learn something out of it. People are always nicer to people they're not paying. So you're always going to make connections. I think you can try, even if you can give up 5 hours a week, whatever it might be, some work can even be done online, maybe be a virtual assistant type thing. I think just figure out what kind of volunteer type stuff you can do and channel your energy towards that and put that stuff on your resume. So when you do go to apply to jobs, be like, right, look, I didn't do it at the last job, but I have been volunteering and I have been able to build up my skill set in that area at this volunteer position that I've been working at. And people will take that into consideration when they are in the hiring process. So I think that's a really key factor.
Excellent, excellent. So, and as president of the International Live Events Association, is there anything that's buzzing among that association and where we're going as far as, 2021, 2022? Associations usually, look farther out. Can they do that?
I think headquarters really right now has been focusing on restructuring their certificate program, their CSEP program. So they've really been trying to modernize that, update it, bring in more people into the fold, re-examining the different educational aspects and points going forward. So they really, really put a lot of effort into that for 2021. And so they've really been rolling out and trying to expand their marketing to bring more people into that. And I think that's also a really good way for people to expand their skill set, is to get more certifications if they have the ability to do that, just depending on what kind of event professional that they are. I think the CSCP is an excellent, very thorough body of knowledge if they have the time and energy to go for it. I know that ILEA has also really been focusing on their diversity and inclusion initiatives as well, from that top down. I know that's one of the things that our chapter has also been looking to do. We have been examining, we're going to be putting out a survey sometime next year, just looking at the New York metro market and what do the members have to say about being a vendor in the New York market? Where are the holes? what do those statistics look like for underrepresented groups in this area. And I think there was one more initiative that was coming out of headquarters. I forgot what it is. I just had it in my head and I've forgotten what it is. But yeah, so there's a couple of different things that are happening for 2021, and we're all looking forward to it.
And what is your perspective on the vaccine? Do you think that will make a difference in getting back to face-to-face, or what's your take on that?
Oh yeah, I think the vaccine, I can't wait to get back to normal. God, I can't wait to leave my 600 square foot studio apartment.
Yeah, especially in New York, right?
Yeah. I think it is going to be such a huge difference in the live events market. However, I think we also need to temper our enthusiasm because it is going to be a very slow rollout. I think obviously it's going to be very segmented at first. It's frontline workers are going to be obviously the first people to get that. And we also have to think about what types of vaccines are right for the appropriate groups. You know, what are the efficacy levels of these different types of vaccines, and who gets them, and how easily are they accessible. So I think once we have a significant pocket, it's going to be very good. But I do think that hybrid events are going to be here for a very long time because there are people who may not be able to get those vaccines for whatever varying health reasons. Maybe there are people who live in more rural areas that don't have access to those vaccines very easily. I think we're going to be looking at hybrid events for quite a while, but I do think the vaccine will be a massive improvement when it gets to live events. But I was just reading recently about the Ticketmaster and how they want to start having those events in person again, but the people who are coming to the events have to have their paperwork with them saying that they have to get a vaccine first. And I would really love to know what that plan looks like, because if they couldn't stop ticket scalpers, I don't know how they're going to manage with vaccine paperwork. So good luck to Ticketmaster.
That's going to be interesting because they're doing everything. You're going to have to do everything on your smartphone pertaining to getting into concerts or sporting events and things like that. And I was more interested in what Ticketmaster was going to do with, what if, you hand off your ticket to somebody else, but because everything's going on your smartphone, I don't know
how they're going to do it. I would really love to see this process because if they couldn't figure out how to do it with tickets from being scalped, I don't know how. Because you can print anything off the internet, and there's also a lot of HIPAA compliance issues with having access to personal data. And I don't know, how many times has Ticketmaster been hacked that I don't think I necessarily trust them with my vaccination records. So I want more information before I start turning over that kind of stuff to entertainment sources.
Yep, they're working hard on it. Well, we got another question for you from Lynn Wellish. What is the top challenge for planners today? What does that look like? Maybe there's a couple that you might want to bring to light for us.
Gosh, I think there's so many different challenges right now. I think really everybody's trying to figure out how to move their audiences online and keep them engaged. I think we're all trying to figure out how to get our audiences to stay with the event that we're producing, and how exactly do we produce those events, and how long should those segmentations be? From what I've been gathering from people I've been having conversations with is that any one segment that you're pulling together on a virtual event shouldn't be any longer than, say, probably 4 minutes long, because you'll lose the attention of the audience. And then what kind of engagement technique do you put in, and at what point do you put those audience engagement techniques in, and and what types of engagement techniques are appropriate for certain audiences. So I personally work with generally two different audience types. They're either neurologists and neuroscientists, or they're caregivers and patients. And so the types of audience engagement techniques that I would use for one group probably wouldn't be applicable to the other group. And it's really kind of parsing through these things about which ones are appropriate for which groups, and how do I keep one group from staying with us and also appealing to another group, like, because we're bringing both of those groups together for our 30th anniversary. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges. I think another good challenge also right now is virtual sponsorships. That's something I personally struggle with because I'm so busy trying to produce an event. I hardly have any time to go and look for those virtual sponsors right now. So my time is very split. I think, how much and when do I offer them and what price point do I offer these virtual sponsorships? So fortunately, through my connections that I've made with ILEA, I have some people I can call up and be like, hey, let me bounce an idea off of you. So I think that's also another benefit to having, colleagues in the event association world. If you're inclined to do that, is that you have these connections that you can bounce these ideas off of. But I think those are two big things, at least for me, I would say.
Yeah, and I think sponsors are not used to the virtual world either, and they're trying to figure out how can I get the best exposure, online. And I think they're probably not realizing that they're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive and show someone like yourself, this is why I can help you. And I think that's what's missing right now.
It is. And it's hard to explain the ROI to people from what it was in person events to what it is online. So I can tell my sponsors that I had at an in-person event, maybe that was at a Dallas event, I have to explain to them why it's actually more valuable for them to sponsor a national event, because although they might have had the market secured in Dallas, but if they do a virtual event that's now national, they're actually able to reach people who maybe have adult children in other cities where their parents live in Dallas, that this could appeal to them in these other places, but they couldn't make it to the conference in Dallas. So there's that aspect as well. So it's very, very hard to explain these things in a very strategic way.
Yeah. It's interesting. Those are great examples of some of the top challenges that that planners are facing today, because they're relevant. They're definitely relevant, no doubt. Well, is there anything else? Gosh, we can keep going on and on here. Is there anything else that you would like to bring to the table here? For another 5 minutes, because this is the opportunity to let our industry know not only about CurePSP, but the association as a whole.
Yeah, I think this is probably a little bit more of a controversial opinion, but I think that I know that the New York market is a very different location than certain other markets. I know that in places like Texas and Florida, that the event capacities are a little bit larger. But I think based on everything that everyone's been hearing from CDC, that the coronavirus is going to be very, very difficult this winter, and I think it's incumbent upon us as event professionals to really look at ourselves and go, just because I can doesn't always mean that I should. And I think that we have to really think about at what point should I not put on an event that is several hundred people just because I can? And I know it's really hard to turn down business. And I think the real solution to that, we wouldn't feel so pressured as event professionals to do larger events to support ourselves, is if we really leaned into our local, state, and federal legislators to provide a federal stimulus package to support the hospitality industry, the restaurant industry, and the event professional industry. I think it's really something that all of us can do going forward as event professionals, is really lean into our representatives, to our politicians, to get some legislative aid, some economic aid for people who are unemployed and underemployed, because it's going to be quite the tsunami of unemployment and hardships going forward between unemployment and the pandemic. So I think I would really recommend people really start calling in, emailing, faxing to their representatives to force them to get some aid passed.
I'm glad you said that, because there's nothing more important right now than to get our hospitality peeps back to work. So I appreciate you saying that, and I'm sure all our viewers appreciate that too. It's just key. We can't do much of what we want to do if we don't get that support and get everybody back to work. And I've seen a lot of the hospitality people leave the industry. We got to get them back before it's too late. And I think what you're saying is so true. So we do have one more question, though, that was referring to the sponsors, and I think is very valid. And I thought I would share that with you. It's from Lisa Raymond. Is it better to gather paying sponsors or asking sponsors to buy and ad space, for example, on YouTube?
For me, I would say, just because I, as a nonprofit, I would go with having paying sponsors, because if they give me the money, it's actually a tax write-off for them. And then we would integrate their sponsorships into our live streams. But it really just depends on the situation that you're in. I guess if you're an individual and you have clients, it really depends on if they want those metrics for their ad space, and then they can see what's going on. But I would really prefer to have the money in my pocket first, and then push out to our live streams.
Yeah, that's a good process, and I'm sure other planners within the association appreciated hearing that too, because that definitely is something that is tricky, but yet a big, huge need, no doubt. So, how can everybody contact you if they've got additional questions or want to brainstorm with you on something else?
Yeah. So I, again, am the only person in the world with my name. So you can easily Google me. I'm on LinkedIn. You can email me. It's my last name, Zendrian, at CurePSP.org. Those are the two best ways. I'm very big on email, and you can always reach me on LinkedIn. Oftentimes I have people that message me on LinkedIn and I've never met them before, and I'm happy to always give them feedback. I had just last week or a week ago before that was a chef, and she's like, I really love to hear your feedback on these event boxes I've been pulling together. And I was like, I've never met you in my life, but yeah, I'm happy to pick apart your proposal and give you some feedback. And she was so happy. And I was like, that's great. The only real things I don't really respond to are like, hey, I want to sell you a product. And I'm like, look, I already kind of know who my vendors are. And if I don't know who my vendors are, I already know who to go to for my vendors. So those are I don't really respond to the salesy type stuff. But if people just need help, I'm happy to help anytime.
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. And that's where we're at right now, is to try to help and boost everybody up. Like you said earlier, the help has to be there among us all. And that's very, very kind of you if anybody wanted to contact you and brainstorm a little bit or need a little bit of help. So, well, gosh, this has definitely been a pleasure. I've been waiting a long time to have you on this show. And here we are, and just a wealth of information. Can't thank you enough. Everybody just enjoys your brilliant wisdom that you bring to the table along with your experience. So thank you so much for being with us here on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was absolutely wonderful.
Well, we are so delighted that Jaclyn was able to join us today. And if you want to see the episode again, by all means, definitely share it with others, and just by going to our HTL YouTube channel or Facebook page as well. And if you do have any questions or would like to be on the show, or know somebody that would like to be on the show, or even sponsor the show like Yard Art Greetings did today, just contact us at hello@hospitalitytodaylive.com. And in the meantime, do join our online community for more upcoming shows, information, and resources. Well, let's talk about our next show. Already toward the end of the month here in November, we will have another conversation around associations as we feature the new Chief Operating Officer for PCMA, Professional Convention Management Association, Bruce McMillan. Now, Bruce will talk about his new role, what he plans to do for the future for members of PCMA, and his take on the pandemic as well. So don't miss next Tuesday's show right here on HTL. I'm Deborah Gardner. Thank you so much for joining us. Be safe, be curious, and be happy. Also, I want everybody to have a great Thanksgiving week as well. Bye, everyone.